My parents had never offered to babysit, not once in 6 years. So when my mother called suggesting they watch Emma and Lucas for our anniversary, I should have known something was wrong. But I was so desperate for one night alone with Ryan that I ignored every instinct screaming at me. We were walking out the door when Ryan spotted their overnight bag in the hallway. He unzipped it. His face went white. Inside were zip ties, duct tape, prepaid phones, and Emma's birth certificate. Ryan grabbed my arm. His voice shook. "Call 911. I stood frozen in the doorway, staring at the contents of that bag, like they were written in a language I couldn't understand. My brain refused to process what my eyes were seeing. Zip ties. The industrial kind, thick and white. The sort you see on crime shows binding someone's wrists. A roll of silver duct tape, the heavy-duty kind from the hardware store. 3 prepaid cell phones still in their plastic packaging. And there, tucked in the side pocket, Emma's birth certificate. The original. The one from our safe deposit box. Ryan already had his phone out, fingers shaking as he dialed. I could hear his voice, urgent and low, speaking to the dispatcher. My legs felt like they'd been filled with concrete. I couldn't move, couldn't think. From the living room, I heard Emma's bright laugh. She was showing my mother something, probably one of her drawings. Lucas was making car noises, vrooming his toy truck across the hardwood floor. My mother, my father, in my living room, with my children. I forced myself to look back into the bag. There was more. A thick manila envelope, unsealed. I pulled it open with trembling fingers. Cash. Stacks of $20 bills. I didn't count it, but there had to be at least $3,000. Beneath that, printed MapQuest directions to a town I'd never heard of. Somewhere near the Canadian border. Children's clothing. Sizes that were all wrong for Emma and Lucas. Too big. Like they expected the kids to grow into them. Or like they'd guessed at sizes without actually checking. A plastic pharmacy bag. I pulled it out. Children's Benadryl. The liquid kind. 2 bottles. And beneath that, a box of allergy medication with a sedative warning label. My stomach lurched. I dropped the bag. Ryan was still talking to the dispatcher, giving our address, saying the words attempted kidnapping and grandparents in the same sentence. The words sounded insane. This was insane. These were my parents. Patricia and Gerald Patterson. My mother taught Sunday school for 15 years. My father coached Little League. They were supposed to be the safe people. I walked toward the living room on legs that didn't feel like my own. Every step felt like moving through water. I could hear my mother's voice, sweet and grandmotherly, asking Emma about her favorite color. Gerald was on the floor with Lucas, building a tower out of blocks. The scene looked so normal, so perfectly, sickeningly normal. I must have made some sound because my mother looked up. Our eyes met. And something in my face must have given it away, because her expression changed instantly. The warm grandmother mask slipped, just for a second, and beneath it I saw something cold, something calculating, something I'd never seen before. She knew. She stood up slowly, smoothing her cardigan. Gerald's head snapped toward her, reading her body language. He stood too, and I watched him shift his position, blocking the path between me and my children. "Mommy, what's wrong?" Emma asked, her 6-year-old face scrunching with concern. I couldn't find my voice. My throat had closed up completely. Ryan appeared behind me, phone still pressed to his ear. "They're on their way," he said to me. Then louder, "To my parents. The police are coming." Patricia's face went very still. Then she smiled. It was the worst smile I'd ever seen. "I don't know what you think you found, Ashley, but you're making a terrible mistake." "We saw the bag," Ryan said. His voice was steady, but I could see the pulse jumping in his neck. He positioned himself between my parents and the front door. "We saw everything." Gerald took a step toward Emma. Just one step, but it was enough. Something in me snapped back to life. "Don't you touch her," I heard myself say. My voice didn't sound like my own. It was low and dangerous and absolutely certain. "Touch her?" Patricia's voice dripped with false concern. "She's my granddaughter. You're acting hysterical, sweetheart. Maybe you should sit down." "You have zip ties in your bag," I said. Each word felt like I was spitting out broken glass, and duct tape, and cash, and sedatives. "You went through our private belongings?" Patricia's tone shifted to indignant. "How dare you? That's our personal property." "Why do you have Emma's birth certificate?" Ryan demanded. The room went very quiet. Emma and Lucas had stopped playing, sensing the tension. Lucas started to whimper. Patricia didn't answer right away. She looked at Gerald. Some wordless communication passed between them. Then she turned back to us, and the mask dropped completely. "Those children deserve better than you," she said simply. Her voice was calm. Matter of fact, like she was commenting on the weather. "We're taking them somewhere safe. Somewhere they'll be raised properly." The world tilted sideways. I couldn't have heard that right. "What?" "You were never supposed to see that bag," Gerald said. He sounded almost regretful. "We were so careful, planned everything perfectly." "You're an unfit mother," Patricia continued. She wasn't yelling, wasn't emotional, just stating facts as far as she was concerned. "You work too much. You let them eat processed foods. You're raising them without proper discipline or faith. We have every right to do this. We're their grandparents." In the distance, sirens wailed, getting closer. Patricia heard them too. Something flickered across her face. Decision. Determination. She lunged for Emma. It happened so fast. 1 second she was standing by the couch. The next she had Emma's wrist in her hand, yanking my daughter toward the back door. Emma screamed. Gerald moved to block Ryan, his body between my husband and the hallway. I didn't think. I just moved. I threw myself at my own mother, tackling her around the waist. We went down hard on the living room floor. Emma pulled free, scrambling away. Patricia twisted beneath me, stronger than I expected, her fingernails raking across my arm. "Get off me," she shrieked. "You're insane. You're attacking me." Ryan had Gerald by the arm, but my father was bigger, trying to shove him aside. Lucas was crying, pressed into the corner. Emma was screaming for me. The front door burst open. Police. 3 officers, hands on weapons, shouting commands. "Freeze! Hands where we can see them." Everything stopped. Gerald let go of Ryan. I rolled off my mother, gasping. Patricia stayed on the floor, but she was already changing her story. I could see it happening in real time. "Thank God you're here," she sobbed. Actual tears streaming down her face. Where had those come from? "My daughter is having a breakdown. She attacked me. Please, help me. She's not well." 2 officers moved to separate everyone. One helped Patricia to her feet with gentle hands. She was crying into his shoulder, the picture of a traumatized elderly woman. "She's lying," I choked out. "The bag. Check the bag in the hallway." But I could already see it in the officers' faces. They saw an older couple, respectable looking, shaken. They saw a younger woman with wild eyes and scratches on her arms, breathing hard, looking unhinged. They saw 2 terrified children, and I realized, standing there in my own living room with sirens still echoing outside, that my parents were going to try to twist this entire situation. Patricia looked at me over the officer's shoulder, and she smiled. 2 hours later, I sat in a cold interrogation room at the police station, trying to explain the unexplainable. Detective Morales, a tired-looking man in his 40s with kind eyes, sat across from me. Ryan was in another room, giving his own statement. Emma and Lucas were with Ryan's sister Julie, probably confused and scared. I kept seeing Emma's face when Patricia grabbed her, kept hearing her scream. "Walk me through it again," Detective Morales said. His voice was patient. From the beginning, I did. I told him about my parents never offering to babysit before, about the phone call, the anniversary, how desperate we'd been for one evening alone, about finding the bag. I described every item, the zip ties, the duct tape, the phones, the cash, Emma's birth certificate, the directions to the Canadian border, the sedatives. "And you're certain about what you saw?" he asked. "My husband took photos," I said, "before your officers arrived. On his phone." Detective Morales made a note. "We'll need those." Relief washed through me. Evidence. We had evidence. This nightmare would be over soon. The detective left the room. I waited, hugging myself, trying to stop shaking. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Time moved strangely. It felt like hours, but the clock on the wall said only 20 minutes had passed. When Detective Morales came back, his expression had changed. "Mrs. Thompson," he said carefully, sitting down. "Your parents have given us their version of events." "Their version?" My voice cracked. "There's only one version. The truth. They say you called your mother 3 days ago, that you were in crisis, that you told her you were having thoughts of hurting your children, and you needed help." The room spun. "What? No, I never said that. I would never say that. They say you begged them to take Emma and Lucas somewhere safe. that the bag contained emergency supplies, in case they needed to protect the children from you. That's insane, I said. That's completely insane. Why would I call the police if I'd asked them to take my kids? They believe you're having a mental health episode, Detective Morales said quietly. They're very concerned about you. I'm not having an episode. I'm not crazy. They were trying to kidnap my children. The detective pulled out a tablet. Mrs. Thompson, I need to show you something. He turned the screen toward me. Text messages. From my phone number to my mother's number, dated 3 days ago. Mom, I can't do this anymore. The kids are too much. I'm not cut out for this. They'd be better off without me. Please take them. Tonight, I need you to take them. I trust you. You'll know what to do. I stared at the messages. My vision blurred. I didn't send these. I never sent these. They came from your phone number. I don't care what number they came from. I didn't write them. My voice was rising. I forced myself to breathe. Getting hysterical wouldn't help. My phone was in my purse all day. Check the location data. Check anything. I didn't send those messages. We'll look into it, he said. But I could hear the doubt in his voice. The door opened. A woman in her 50s entered carrying a clipboard. She had short gray hair and glasses on a chain around her neck. She looked like someone's aunt. Harmless. Sympathetic. Mrs. Thompson, I'm Susan Garrett from Child Protective Services. I need to ask you some questions. My blood went cold. CPS. They'd called CPS. Of course I managed. She sat down, clicked her pen. Have you been feeling overwhelmed lately? No more than any working mother. Have you had thoughts of harming yourself or your children? Absolutely not. Your parents expressed concern that you've been struggling. They mentioned you were prescribed anxiety medication last year? For work stress. Normal work stress. I took it for 3 months and stopped when I didn't need it anymore. My doctor will tell you that. Have you been drinking? Using any substances? No. Your parents say you yell at the children frequently. I discipline them normally. I'm not abusive. They have photos of bruises on Emma's knees. She falls on the playground. She's 6. Kids get bruises. Mrs. Thompson, please calm down. I realized I was shouting. I pressed my hands flat on the table, trying to steady myself. This was a nightmare. This couldn't be happening. Where are my children? I asked. They're safe with your husband's sister for now. For now? Susan Garrett's expression was carefully neutral. Until we complete our evaluation. Evaluation of what? I didn't do anything wrong. We need to ensure the children's safety, she said gently, as if she were being kind, as if she were helping. Detective Morales cleared his throat. There's something else. We got a warrant for a storage unit. I looked up. What storage unit? Rented in your father's name, 3 months ago. Someone matching his description was spotted there earlier today, before the incident at your home. What was in it? Children's bedroom furniture. Toys. School enrollment papers for a district near the Canadian border. And some forged court documents claiming your parents had been granted custody of Emma and Lucas. Hope flared in my chest. So you see, they were planning this. They were going to take my kids across the border. It's concerning, Detective Morales admitted. But their lawyer is claiming the storage unit shows concerned grandparents preparing to help in case you had a breakdown. That they were creating a safe space for temporary custody if you became unable to care for the children. You can't be serious. I'm telling you how they're spinning it, and you believe them? I believe something very wrong almost happened in your house tonight, he said. But proving criminal intent is complicated. Your parents have an expensive lawyer. They're claiming everything they did was out of concern for their grandchildren's welfare. The zip ties, I said desperately. The duct tape. How do they explain that? They say those were in the bag by mistake. That your father had been doing home repairs and didn't remove his tools. That's ridiculous. It might be, but we need solid evidence to charge them. And right now, with these text messages from your phone, with their documented concerns about your mental health, with the storage unit that could be interpreted either way, a prosecutor might not take the case. I couldn't breathe. The walls were closing in. Where are my parents now? We had to release them. Not enough evidence to hold them. You released them? I stood up so fast my chair scraped across the floor. They tried to kidnap my children and you let them go? Mrs. Thompson, sit down. No! They're out there right now, and my kids are at my sister-in-law's house, and you're treating me like I'm the criminal. Ryan appeared in the doorway. He looked as devastated as I felt. They let them go, he said. I know. Their lawyer just showed up. Some expensive guy in a suit. How do they have money for an expensive lawyer? I asked. They've always claimed they were struggling financially. Detective Morales made another note. That's a good question. We were allowed to leave an hour later. Julie brought Emma and Lucas to her house, where we were staying temporarily while CPS did their investigation. The kids were already asleep in the guest room when we arrived. I stood in the doorway watching them breathe, making sure they were really there. Really safe. We'll get through this, Ryan said behind me. But I didn't know if that was true. Because as I watched my children sleep, I realized something terrible. My parents had been planning this for months. They'd thought of everything. The storage unit, the fake text messages, the concerned grandparents act. They'd built a whole narrative, and they'd done it so carefully that even when we caught them, even with their kidnapping supplies in plain sight, they'd found a way to make it look like I was the unstable one. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother's number. This isn't over. You have no idea what you've done. I showed Ryan. His jaw clenched. Tomorrow we're calling a lawyer, he said. The best one we can afford. But as I lay awake that night, I couldn't stop thinking about that storage unit. The enrollment papers. The furniture. This hadn't been some impulsive act. They'd been preparing for months, which meant they'd been planning to take my children for months. And I'd never seen it coming. 3 days crawled by. 3 days of supervised visits with my own children. 3 days of Emma asking when she could come home and me having no answer. 3 days of Lucas clinging to me so hard during visits that he left little fingerprint bruises on my arms. 3 days of Julie looking at me with pity and trying to hide it. Ryan and I sat in Brandon Walsh's office on the 4th day. He was the best family attorney we could afford, which meant he was cheaper than my parents' lawyer, but hopefully competent. His office smelled like old coffee and desperation. I wondered how many other families had sat in these chairs, trying to keep their children. Brandon was in his 60s, with silver hair and reading glasses that kept sliding down his nose. He'd been reviewing our case file for the past 30 minutes, occasionally making notes. Finally, he looked up. "This is bad," he said. "How bad?" Ryan asked. "Your parents filed for emergency grandparents' rights custody yesterday." My stomach dropped. They what? In Ohio, grandparents can petition for custody if they can prove the parents are unfit. Your parents are claiming you're mentally unstable, a danger to your children, and that they need to step in for the children's safety. But that's all lies, I said. I know. But they have evidence. He spread papers across his desk, or what looks like evidence. The text messages from your phone. Photos of your house that they're claiming shows neglect. What photos? He turned his laptop around. Pictures of our living room, toys scattered across the floor, dishes in the sink, a laundry basket overflowing. Normal life. Normal mess. This is a lived-in home, I said. This is what houses with kids look like. I agree. But they're painting it as chaos. Inability to manage basic household tasks. This is insane. There's more. He clicked through more files. They have a statement from a neighbor who says she heard you yelling at the kids last month. I was yelling at our dog. He got into the trash. The neighbor's statement doesn't specify what you were yelling about, just that she heard you screaming. Ryan's hand found mine under the table. What else? Character witnesses. Your mother's friends from her church. They're prepared to testify that you were a troubled child, that you've always been impulsive and emotionally unstable. That's not true. Doesn't matter if it's true. It's about what they can make a judge believe. Brandon leaned back in his chair. They also pulled your medical records. The anxiety medication you were prescribed last year, which I took responsibly and stopped when I didn't need it anymore. Again, I believe you. But they're building a narrative. Troubled childhood, mental health issues, overwhelmed mother, messy home, inability to cope, and then these text messages where you supposedly begged them to take the children. I didn't send those messages. I know. But proving someone else sent them from your phone is technically difficult and time-consuming. We'd need forensic experts, cell tower data, the works. That takes time and money. How much money? Ryan asked. Brandon named a figure that made my chest tighten. We didn't have that kind of money. There's something else you should know, Brandon said quietly. I did some digging into your parents' finances. And they declared bankruptcy 2 years ago. Lost their house. Gerald has significant gambling debts. They should be broke. So how are they paying for their lawyer? I asked. That's what I'd like to know. Their attorney doesn't come cheap. And that storage unit, the rental near the border, all those supplies, that takes money. You think someone's funding them? Ryan said. I think there's more going on here than we understand. Brandon took off his glasses, cleaned them. I also found something interesting about your children's trust funds. My blood went cold. What about them? They're beneficiaries of $200,000 each from your late father's estate, correct? Brandon said to Ryan. Yes, from my dad. The money is held in trust until they're 18, unless my wife and I decide to access it for their education or welfare. With custody, your parents could potentially petition to become trustees of those funds. They could argue they need access to properly care for the children. $400,000. The room tilted. You think this is about money? I whispered. I think $400,000 is a powerful motivator. Combined with their financial troubles, yes, I think money is part of this. But they're my parents, I said. The words sounded stupid even as I said them. They're supposed to love me. Brandon's expression was kind but firm. People do terrible things for money. Even to their own family. Sometimes especially to their own family. We left his office with a court date 3 weeks away. 3 weeks until a judge would decide if my parents could take my children. 3 weeks to somehow prove my innocence and their guilt. That afternoon, I got called into my boss's office. I'd been working from Julie's house, trying to pretend everything was normal. But nothing was normal. Ashley, we need to talk, my boss said. Margaret was usually warm, friendly. Today she looked uncomfortable. Is this about the leave I requested? It's about your situation. We've been getting calls from reporters. Reporters? Your parents' lawyer contacted the press. Concerned grandparents trying to save their grandchildren from unstable mother. It's a story. And your name is connected to this company. My face burned. You know that's not true. You know me. I do. But the board is concerned about publicity. They've asked me to place you on administrative leave. Administrative leave? That's basically firing me. It's temporary, until this is resolved. Margaret, I need this job. I need my income. This is exactly what my parents want. They're trying to make me look unstable and unemployed and unable to provide for my kids. I'm sorry, Ashley. It's not my decision. I cleaned out my desk in a haze. Another piece falling into place for my parents. Now I had no job. Now I looked like exactly what they were claiming, a mother falling apart. That night, Diane came over. My best friend since college. She'd been calling constantly, offering help I didn't know how to accept. I've been doing research, she said, spreading her laptop open on Julie's kitchen table. Your parents, their finances. Brandon already looked into that. Not deep enough. She turned the screen toward me. Look, they declared bankruptcy 2 years ago, right? Lost everything in a bad investment. But check this out. She pulled up a property record. A house near the Canadian border. The address matched the one from their storage unit. They bought this 4 months ago. How? They're bankrupt. That's what I wondered. So I dug deeper. The house is in a shell company name, but if you follow the paperwork, it traces back to an offshore account. Ryan leaned over my shoulder. They're hiding money. Or someone's giving them money, Diane said. Someone who doesn't want their name attached. Who would do that? I don't know yet. But people don't hide money like this, unless they're doing something illegal. My phone rang. Unknown number, I answered. Mrs. Thompson? This is Judge Collins's office. I'm calling to inform you of tomorrow's preliminary hearing regarding emergency custody arrangements. Tomorrow? That's not for 3 weeks. Your parents' attorney filed for an emergency hearing. The judge granted it. Tomorrow at 9 in the morning. My hands started shaking. But our lawyer, your attorney has been notified. I'm just confirming you'll be present. She hung up. I looked at Ryan. They moved up the hearing. It's tomorrow. We called Brandon. He was furious but unsurprised. They want to push this through before we have time to build our case. It's a tactic. Can they do that? They just did. Get some sleep. Tomorrow is going to be hard. I didn't sleep. I lay in Julie's guest room, listening to Emma and Lucas breathe in the next room, wondering if tomorrow would be the last day I had any legal right to my own children. The next morning, we drove to the courthouse. My parents were already there with their lawyer, a man in an expensive suit who looked like he'd never lost a case in his life. Patricia and Gerald looked perfect. Conservative clothes, concerned expressions, the picture of worried grandparents. We went into the courtroom. Judge Collins was a stern woman in her 50s. She reviewed the files in front of her. This is a preliminary hearing regarding emergency custody, she said. I've reviewed both petitions. Mr. Walsh, your clients are the parents, correct? Yes, Your Honor, Brandon said. And you're representing the grandparents. She nodded to the expensive lawyer. Yes, Your Honor. Robert Mitchell. My brain snagged on the name, but I couldn't focus. I was watching the judge's face, trying to read her expression. I've seen the evidence presented by both sides, Judge Collins said. The text messages from Mrs. Thompson's phone are concerning, as are the reports from CPS regarding the home environment. Your Honor, those text messages were fabricated, Brandon said. We're requesting a forensic examination, which takes time. And the safety of minor children cannot wait. My heart was pounding so hard, I thought everyone could hear it. I've also reviewed the grandparents' petition, the judge continued. The storage unit, the supplies found in their possession, the flight risk factors. Hope flickered. Maybe she saw through their lies. However, Judge Collins said, and that one word crushed me. The grandparents' attorney has provided documentation showing these items were procured out of legitimate concern for the children's welfare in case emergency custody was needed. Your Honor, they had zip ties and sedatives, I blurted out. Mrs. Thompson, you'll have time to speak, the judge said sharply, but I could already see where this was going. My ruling is as follows, Judge Collins said. Pending a full custody hearing, the children will remain in the temporary care of the paternal aunt. Mrs. Thompson will have supervised visitation twice per week, 2 hours per visit. Relief and devastation warred in my chest. At least the kids weren't going to my parents. Mr. and Mrs. Patterson will also be granted supervised visitation once per week. What? I stood up. Your Honor, you can't be serious. Mrs. Thompson, sit down. They tried to kidnap my children. They had escape bags packed. You're giving them access to my kids? They are the biological grandparents with documented concerns about the children's welfare. I'm granting limited supervised visitation. That's my ruling. Your Honor, please, Brandon said. My clients have serious concerns about the grandparents having any access. The visitation will be supervised by a court-appointed monitor. My ruling stands. The gavel came down. Patricia looked across the courtroom at me and smiled. As we left, I saw her whisper something to her lawyer. They both looked satisfied. Gerald was making a phone call, looking pleased. Outside, I couldn't breathe. They get to see my kids. After everything they did, they get to see my kids. It could have been worse, Brandon said. They could have gotten temporary custody. How is this not worse? How is this justice? Ryan held me as I fell apart in the courthouse parking lot. Over his shoulder, I watched my parents get into a brand new car, a BMW, beautiful, expensive. They'd said they were bankrupt. They'd cried poor for years. But there they were, driving away in a car that cost more than our annual income. I pulled out my phone, took a picture of the license plate. Something was very, very wrong here, and I was going to figure out what. 2 weeks dragged by like years. Twice a week, I went to a sterile visitation center and sat with Emma and Lucas for 2 hours, while a monitor took notes on everything I said and did. Emma kept asking why she couldn't come home. Lucas stopped talking as much as he used to. I was watching my children slip away from me, 2 hours at a time. Ryan was holding everything together, but I could see the cracks forming. The stress was crushing both of us. We barely slept, barely ate. Our entire lives had become this nightmare. And then, on a Tuesday afternoon, my parents took the kids for their court-ordered visitation. The visitation was supposed to be from 1 in the afternoon until 5. By 6, they hadn't brought the kids back. Julie called me, panicked. The monitor had been there until 5, when the visit was supposed to end. My parents said they just needed 5 more minutes. The monitor had another appointment and left. That was an hour ago. By 7, Ryan was on the phone with the police. By 8, we were at the police station, filing a report. But here was the problem. My parents had court-ordered visitation rights. They were legally allowed to have the children. The fact that they were late returning them wasn't technically kidnapping. Give them until 9, the detective on duty said. Sometimes visits run long. They had zip ties and escape bags, Ryan said. This is exactly what we were afraid of. We can't arrest them for being late. 9 o'clock came and went. So did 10. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Emma and Lucas had been with my parents for 9 hours. Anything could have happened. They could be in Canada by now. They could be anywhere. At 11, my phone finally rang. It was Patricia. Where are my children? I screamed into the phone. They're fine. We're on our way back now. It's 11 at night. You were supposed to bring them back at 5. We lost track of time. We took them somewhere special. They had such a lovely day. I'm calling the police. The police already know where we are. We've been in contact with our lawyer. Everything is fine. She hung up. 15 minutes later, a car pulled up to Julie's house. My parents got out with Emma and Lucas. Both kids looked exhausted. Emma's eyes were red like she'd been crying. I ran outside, not caring that I was in my pajamas. I grabbed both kids, holding them so tight they squeaked in protest. "Where were you?" I demanded. "We took them on a little trip," Patricia said calmly. "Nothing to worry about." "A trip where?" "Just a day out. Got back later than we planned. Children need time with their grandparents." A police car pulled up. The officer got out, looked at everyone. "Kids okay?" "They're fine," Gerald said. "Just a misunderstanding about timing." The officer looked at me. "Ma'am, the children appear unharmed. They were supposed to be back 6 hours ago. I understand your concern, but there's no crime here. The grandparents have visitation rights." "Take them inside," Ryan said to me. "Get them to bed." I did. Emma was quiet, not her usual chatty self. Lucas wouldn't let go of my hand. I tucked them into bed, kissed their foreheads. "What happened today?" I asked Emma gently. She looked at me with her big 6-year-old eyes. "Grandma said if we tell, you'll go to jail forever." My blood went cold. "Sweetie, that's not true. You can tell me anything." But she just shook her head and rolled over, clutching her stuffed rabbit. I went back downstairs. The police officer was gone. My parents were gone. Ryan was sitting on the couch, head in his hands. "They're playing games," he said, "showing us they can do whatever they want." The next day, Emma woke up screaming from a nightmare. She wouldn't tell me what it was about. Lucas wet the bed, something he hadn't done in a year. I called CPS to report what happened. Susan Garrett came out, talked to the kids. But Emma wouldn't speak. Lucas just stared at his shoes. "Without the children confirming something happened, there's not much we can do," Susan said. "The grandparents say it was just an innocent long day out. No laws were broken. My daughter is having nightmares, which could be from the stress of the custody situation in general. I'm sorry, Mrs. Thompson. My hands are tied." That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about where they might have taken the kids, about Emma saying Grandma threatened her, about the 8 missing hours. I got up, opened my laptop, started searching. The address from their storage unit, the town near the Canadian border. I pulled up the property records Diane had found. That house they somehow owned despite being bankrupt. I spent hours going down rabbit holes, searching property records, business filings, anything connected to Patricia and Gerald Patterson. And then I found something. A business registration, Patterson Family Trust, filed 6 months ago. Officers listed, Patricia Patterson and someone named Marcus Denton. I searched Marcus Denton. My stomach dropped. He was a criminal, released from prison 3 months ago, served 8 years for identity theft and fraud, connected to an organized crime family that specialized in fake documents. I called Diane. It was 3 a.m, but she answered on the second ring. "I'm coming over," she said when I told her what I found. She arrived 20 minutes later with her laptop. We sat at Julie's kitchen table, digging through everything we could find on Marcus Denton. "Look at this," Diane said, pulling up a news article. "His operation created fake identities for criminals. New social security numbers, birth certificates. Everything someone would need to disappear and start over. Or to make children disappear," I whispered. "Oh my God." We kept searching, found more connections. Shell companies, offshore accounts, money moving through businesses that didn't seem to exist. "Your parents are involved with this guy," Diane said. "They're working with actual criminals." "But why?" $400,000 in trust funds, plus whatever else they're getting paid. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. A photo attached. I opened it. My breath caught. Emma and Lucas, sitting in a living room I didn't recognize. Emma looked scared. The photo was from yesterday, during those missing 8 hours. Another text. "They're already ours. Stop fighting or accidents happen." "Oh God," I said. "They took them there. To that house, the one near the border." "That was a practice run," Diane said. "They were testing whether they could actually take them, whether anyone would stop them." I forwarded the photos to Detective Morales. Called him, even though it was 4 a.m. "This is a direct threat," I said when he answered. "I'll open an investigation," he said. But he sounded tired. "Mrs. Thompson, I believe you. But proving this connection, gathering enough evidence to arrest them, that takes time." "I don't have time. They're planning something." "I know. We're working on it. But I could hear in his voice that working on it wasn't fast enough. The next morning I went through our finances, looking for anything to hire a better lawyer, anything to fight harder, and that's when I found it. A life insurance policy. On me, that I didn't remember signing up for. The policy was for $500,000. The beneficiary was Patricia Patterson. It had been taken out 7 months ago. My signature on the application, but I didn't remember signing it. I called the insurance company, verified the policy was real, asked about the 2-year suicide clause. That clause had expired. The policy was fully active. If I died now, my mother would get $500,000. On top of the trust funds, if she had custody. They're planning to kill me, I said out loud to no one. Ryan found me sitting on the bathroom floor an hour later. I was shaking so hard I couldn't stand. I showed him the policy. His face went gray. We need to go to the police. Now. We did. Detective Morales looked at the policy, at the forged signature, at the connections to Marcus Denton, at everything we'd found. This is building to something, he said. But it's complex. They've covered their tracks well. We need more evidence. How much more evidence do you need? I shouted. They tried to kidnap my kids. They're working with criminals. They forged my signature on a life insurance policy. They threatened me. The photos came from an unknown number. The life insurance signature is hard to prove is forged without expert analysis, which takes time. The connection to Denton is concerning but not illegal on its own. So what do I do? Just wait until they kill me? I'm going to talk to the FBI, he said. This Marcus Denton guy, he's part of a larger investigation. Maybe we can leverage that. 3 days before the final custody hearing, my parents' lawyer filed new motions. Character witnesses who would testify I was unstable. Documentation of my erratic behavior. The fake texts, photos of my neglected home. Brandon called me. It's not looking good. They have 5 people willing to testify that you're an unfit mother. We have character witnesses too, but the judge seems inclined to believe concerned grandparents over young parents. So I'm going to lose. I don't want to say that, but you need to prepare yourself for the possibility. That night, I sat on the floor of Julie's guest room and cried until I couldn't breathe. Emma and Lucas were asleep in the next room. I thought about them growing up with Patricia and Gerald. I thought about never seeing them again. I thought about my parents getting $400,000 and a $500,000 life insurance payout, and moving to that house near the border with my children, and raising them to believe I was crazy. I thought about how perfectly they'd planned this, how they'd thought of everything, how every move I made, they'd countered, how I was trapped in a nightmare I couldn't escape. My phone buzzed. Patricia. Another text. Tomorrow, you lose everything. Gerald and I are taking Emma and Lucas to Mexico by weekend. You'll never find them. And then, because she was so confident, because she thought she'd already won, she added one more thing. We already sold their social security numbers to Marcus. 3 kids getting new lives. Yours disappeared. 2 criminals becoming citizens. Everybody wins. Except you. I stared at that message for a long time. Then I screenshot it. And I called Detective Morales. They just confessed, I said. I can prove everything. Detective Morales was at the house in 20 minutes. He read the text message 3 times. This is it, he said. This is direct evidence of conspiracy to commit identity fraud and human trafficking. Will it be enough? Ryan asked. Combined with everything else? Yes. But we need to move carefully. They still have visitation rights. They could run. The custody hearing is in 3 days, I said. I know. He made a phone call. I'm bringing in the FBI. An hour later, 2 FBI agents sat in Julie's living room. One was a woman in her 40s named Agent Harrison. The other was younger, Agent Brooks. They'd been investigating Marcus Denton for 2 years. Your parents are part of a larger operation, Agent Harrison said. Denton's organization creates fake identities for criminals. New papers, new lives, untraceable. They target vulnerable children. Children? My voice cracked. Foster kids. Kids in custody disputes. Anywhere children's paperwork might be in flux, they steal the identities, sell them to criminals fleeing prosecution, and sometimes the children disappear entirely. Oh my God. We've been trying to catch Denton for years. He's careful, uses intermediaries. Your parents are those intermediaries. So arrest them, Ryan said. We want to. But if we move now, Denton disappears, and the whole operation continues. We need solid evidence. Recordings, transactions, proof of the conspiracy. The custody hearing is in 3 days, I repeated. Agent Harrison and Detective Morales exchanged looks. "We have an idea," Agent Harrison said, "but it's risky. I'll do anything." The hearing. We let it proceed. Wire the courthouse. Let your parents think they're winning. If they're confident enough, they might say something incriminating. Confess something to their lawyer. Make a phone call. We record everything. "You want to use me as bait," I said. "We want to catch them in the act of conspiracy." "Yes. What if something goes wrong? What if they actually get custody?" "They won't. The judge will be informed of the operation. We'll have agents positioned throughout the courthouse. The second we have enough evidence, we move in. And if you don't get enough evidence?" Agent Harrison's face was grave. "Then we stop the hearing and arrest them anyway." But without the full conspiracy recorded, Denton might walk. Other children might be in danger. I looked at Ryan. He looked back at me. I could see my own fear reflected in his eyes. "Okay," I said. "Let's do it." The next 2 days were agony. I had to act normal. Had to go to a supervised visitation with my kids while wearing a wire, knowing the FBI was listening, knowing my parents were planning to steal my children and sell their identities to criminals. Emma and Lucas were getting quieter, more withdrawn. I was losing them, not to my parents, but to the trauma of this entire nightmare. Even if I won custody, would they ever be okay? "Mommy, I'm scared," Emma whispered during one visit. "Of what, baby?" "I don't know. Everything." I held her while she cried. The monitor made notes. Another mark against me, probably. Daughter emotionally distressed during mother's visits. The night before the hearing, I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. Brandon came over to prepare. "Whatever happens tomorrow, we're fighting this," he said. "If they try to rule against you, we appeal. We don't stop. What if the FBI plan fails? Then we go to plan B." "What's plan B?" "I don't know yet. But there's always another move. Always another option." I wasn't sure I believed him. That night, Ryan held me while I shook. "We're going to get through this," he said. "How do you know?" "Because we have to. Because those kids need us. Because I refuse to let your parents win. They've thought of everything." "Not everything. They didn't think we'd fight this hard. They didn't think we'd find Denton. They didn't think Patricia would get cocky enough to text you a confession. What if tomorrow isn't enough? Then we keep fighting. Every day. For as long as it takes." At 4 a.m, I gave up on sleep. I went downstairs, made coffee, sat at the kitchen table. My whole life had led to this moment. Every decision, every sacrifice, everything I'd done to try to be a good mother. And it still might not be enough. Julie found me at 5, still sitting there. "You're going to win today," she said. "You don't know that." "Yes, I do. Because you're already the better parent. You're fighting for your kids. They're fighting for money. That has to mean something." "I hope you're right." At 7, we got ready. I put on my most conservative outfit, did my makeup carefully, tried to look stable and put together. The kind of mother a judge would trust with children. Agent Harrison called. "We're in position. Everything is wired. We have agents throughout the courthouse. Judge Collins knows about the operation. She's been briefed. Is she going to help?" "She's going to let the hearing proceed naturally. Give your parents enough rope to hang themselves." "What if they don't confess?" "They will. Criminals always do when they think they've won." I hope she was right. We drove to the courthouse. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely buckle my seatbelt. Ryan drove in silence. Brandon met us in the parking lot. "Ready?" he asked. "No." "Good. Means you're taking this seriously." We walked inside. The courthouse smelled like floor polish and anxiety. My parents were already there. Patricia in a tasteful blue suit. Gerald in a tie. They looked like respectable citizens. Concerned grandparents. Patricia saw me and smiled. That same cold smile from 2 weeks ago. We filed into the courtroom. The judge entered. Everyone stood. "This is a final hearing regarding custody of Emma and Lucas Thompson," Judge Collins said. "I've reviewed all submitted materials. Mr. Mitchell, you're representing the grandparents?" "Yes, Your Honor." Patricia's lawyer stood. He was smooth, confident. Everything Brandon wasn't. "We're asking for full custody of the minor children. Their mother is demonstrably unfit. We have extensive evidence. Character witnesses. Documentation of neglect and mental instability." "Your Honor, the grandparents attempted to kidnap these children," Brandon said. "Everything they've presented is manufactured." "That's quite an accusation, Mr. Walsh." "Which I can prove, given time." "We don't have time," the judge said. These children need stability. I could see it happening. Could see her leaning toward my parents. Could see everything I'd feared coming true. I'd like to hear from the grandparents directly, Judge Collins said. Mrs. Patterson, please take the stand. Patricia stood, smoothing her skirt. She walked to the witness stand like she was walking to receive an award. Confident, certain. She was sworn in, sat down, looked directly at me as she spoke. Your Honor, I love my daughter. But she's not well. She hasn't been well for a long time. Lie. The first of many. Can you elaborate? She's always been unstable, impulsive. As a child, she was difficult. As an adult, she's made poor choices. This custody situation is just another example. That's not true, I whispered. Ryan grabbed my hand. Patricia continued. When she called me and said she was having thoughts of hurting the children, I was terrified, but not surprised. I'd been worried this was coming. I never called her, I said louder. Mrs. Thompson, you'll have your turn to speak, the judge said. But she's lying. One more outburst and I'll have you removed from my courtroom. I bit my lips so hard I tasted blood. Patricia kept talking, describing a childhood I'd never had, a mental illness I didn't have, a breakdown that never occurred. She was convincing. So convincing I could see the judge believing her. The children need stability, Patricia said. They need grandparents who can provide a calm, loving home. Gerald and I have resources. We have time. We have a house ready for them. Where is this house? The judge asked. Near the Canadian border. Beautiful area. Great schools. Perfect for raising children. And you acquired this house when? 4 months ago. We've been preparing for this for a while. There it was. Admission she'd been planning this. But she didn't see the trap. Preparing for what exactly? The judge asked. For when Ashley finally broke down completely, we knew it was coming. In the gallery, I saw Agent Harrison lean forward slightly. The judge continued. And the supplies found in your bag the night of the incident? The zip ties, duct tape, sedatives? Patricia didn't even blink. Emergency supplies. If Ashley became violent, we needed to protect the children and get them to safety quickly. By drugging them? By keeping them calm. Children's Benadryl for the drive. Nothing harmful. A long drive, I assume? To our house. Yes. Near the border. Another admission. The FBI was getting it all on tape. The judge consulted her notes. And the prepaid cell phones? Backup communication. In case Ashley tried to track us. So you were planning to take the children and ensure their mother couldn't find them? Patricia hesitated, finally seeing the trap, but too committed to back out now. I was planning to protect my grandchildren. By taking them across the Canadian border? If necessary. Without their mother's permission? My daughter is mentally ill. Patricia's voice rose. Someone has to protect those children. Mrs. Patterson, please lower your voice. I won't. I've done everything right. The house, the documents, the plan. We've been preparing for months. Those children need us, not her. What documents? The judge asked quietly. And Patricia froze, realizing what she'd just said. Nothing, I meant. The legal documents for custody. What other documents have you prepared? None. I misspoke. But the damage was done. In the gallery, FBI agents were moving. Your Honor, Patricia's lawyer stood. My client is upset. She didn't mean... Sit down, Mr. Mitchell. This is clearly a setup. I said sit down. Gerald was whispering frantically to the lawyer. I saw him pull out his phone. Saw him start to dial. Agent Harrison stood. FBI. Gerald Patterson. Put the phone down. The courtroom erupted. Patricia's face went white. Gerald tried to run, but agents blocked the exits. What is this? Patricia screamed. Patricia and Gerald Patterson. You're under arrest for conspiracy to kidnap, conspiracy to commit identity fraud, child endangerment, and conspiracy to commit human trafficking. No, this is a setup. This is entrapment. Agents swarmed them, reading them their rights. Patricia was screaming, Gerald struggling. Their lawyer was protesting, demanding to know what was happening. Judge Collins banged her gavel. Order! Everyone sit down! The courtroom slowly quieted. My parents were in handcuffs. Patricia's perfect composure completely shattered. She was crying, mascara running down her face. You ungrateful bitch, she screamed at me. After everything we did for you! We gave you life, and this is how you repay us! You tried to sell my children, I said. My voice was steady, calmer than I expected. You tried to steal their identities and sell them to criminals. You're not grandparents. You're traffickers. That's not true. Tell them, Gerald. Tell them it's not true. But Gerald wasn't saying anything. He was staring at the floor, defeated. Agent Harrison approached the bench, handed the judge a thick file. Your Honor, we have recordings of Mrs. Patterson confessing to conspiracy to commit kidnapping and identity fraud. We also have evidence of their connection to Marcus Denton's criminal organization. They were planning to take the children to Canada, sell their social security numbers and birth certificates to criminals, and collect the children's trust funds. They also forged a life insurance policy on the mother, likely planning to kill her after obtaining custody. The judge read through the file. Her face grew harder with each page. I'm dismissing this custody petition immediately, she said. Full custody is returned to the biological parents, with a permanent restraining order against the grandparents. Mr. Walsh, prepare the paperwork. Yes, Your Honor, Brandon said. He was trying not to smile. As for you, the judge looked at my parents. You're both looking at 15 to 20 years in federal prison. This is a mistake, Patricia shrieked as they dragged her out. Those children need us. The money is ours. We deserve it. And there it was. Her final confession. It had always been about the money. The courtroom doors closed behind them. The sound echoed. It was over. The courthouse emptied slowly. People staring, whispering. I sat in my seat, unable to move, unable to process what had just happened. Mrs. Thompson? Agent Harrison was standing beside me. We need you to come to our office. Give a full statement. Can I see my children first? Of course. We'll have them brought here. Julie arrived 30 minutes later with Emma and Lucas. I ran to them, fell to my knees, pulled them into my arms. Lucas was crying. Emma was saying, "What's happening? What's happening?" "You're coming home," I said into her hair. "You're coming home, baby. It's over." "Are Grandma and Grandpa coming too?" "No, they're going away for a very long time." "Good," Emma said fiercely. She hugged me tighter. They were scary. "I know, sweetheart. I know." We spent the next 3 hours at the FBI office. Agent Harrison was patient, methodical. She walked me through everything, the recordings from the courtroom, the evidence they'd gathered, the full scope of Marcus Denton's operation. Your parents were recruiting children, she said. Kids in custody disputes, foster children, anywhere the paperwork was in flux. They'd convince someone they were helping, then take the children and create new identities. Sell those identities to criminals for $20,000 to $30,000 each. How many children? Ryan asked. We're not sure yet. We're still investigating. But at least a dozen over the past 2 years. I felt sick. We have to find them. We will. Thanks to you, we finally have the evidence to bring down the whole operation. What about Marcus Denton? Arrested this morning, along with 6 other members of his organization. This is a major win. It didn't feel like a win. It felt like I'd just discovered my parents were monsters. Why? I asked. Why would they do this? Money, Agent Harrison said simply. They were bankrupt, desperate. Denton approached them, offered them a way out. All they had to do was help him acquire children's identities. Your kids were perfect targets. Trust funds they could access. A life insurance policy they could cash in. And 2 social security numbers worth $60,000 on the black market. They were going to kill me, I said. We believe so. After they had full custody and access to the trust funds, you would have had an unfortunate accident, probably made to look like suicide, given the mental health narrative they'd constructed. Ryan's hand found mine under the table. When do I get my kids back full-time? I asked. Today. Right now. You're free to go home. CPS is dropping their investigation. The restraining order is permanent. Your parents won't be able to contact you or the children ever again. We left the FBI office as the sun was setting. Emma and Lucas fell asleep in the car on the way back to Julie's. We carried them inside, tucked them into bed. What now? Ryan asked. Now we go home, I said. Our actual home. And we start over. The next few weeks were a blur, moving back into our house. Deep cleaning everything, like we could wash away the violation of what had happened. Getting Emma and Lucas into therapy. Finding a therapist for myself, for Ryan, for all of us. Detective Morales called 2 weeks after the arrests. Your parents took a plea deal, he said. 17 years each. They'll be in their 80s when they get out. Good, I said, and meant it. There's something else you should know. We found evidence of more victims. 14 children total whose identities were stolen. We're working to locate them all. Are they alive? We don't know yet, but we're trying. Some nights I couldn't sleep, thinking about those other children. Those other families, wondering if they'd gotten their kids back or if they were still searching. A month after the arrests, there was a knock on our door. A man in his 60s stood on the porch, holding a casserole dish. "Ashley? I'm Stuart. Gerald's brother. My uncle. I hadn't seen him since I was a teenager. Some family falling out I'd never understood. Can I come in?" I let him in, wary. But he looked kind, sad. "I heard what happened," he said. "I should have warned you. I knew Patricia was dangerous. Gerald, too. But I thought I'd cut them off years ago, that you'd be safe. Why were you estranged?" "Patricia stole from me. $20,000. When I confronted her, she turned the whole family against me, said I was lying. Gerald backed her up. I realized then what kind of people they were." He set the casserole on the counter. "I came to give you this." He handed me an envelope. "Bank statements from 15 years ago. Your grandmother's accounts. Before she died." I opened it. Saw transfers. Large sums of money moving from my grandmother's account to my parents' accounts. "They stole from her?" I whispered. "Everything. Your grandmother's will left her entire estate to you. $400,000. Patricia and Gerald convinced her to sign power of attorney, claiming they'd manage the money until you were older. Then they took it all. Your grandmother died thinking you'd inherited everything. She never knew." I sank into a chair. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I tried. Patricia convinced everyone I was bitter and lying. By the time I could prove it, your grandmother was gone and the money was spent. I kept the evidence in case I ever needed to protect myself from them." "Thank you," I said. "This helps. Explains a lot." "There's more." He pulled out another envelope. "I've been investigating their finances since the arrests. Following the money, I found something interesting. Inside were more bank statements, offshore accounts, shell companies, wire transfers. Your parents weren't just working for Denton," Stuart said. "They were partners. They'd been in the identity theft business for years. Small scale, before Denton, stealing from family members, creating fake documents, small frauds. When they went bankrupt, Denton saw an opportunity, brought them into his operation. They've been criminals for years, probably decades. They were just careful, until they got greedy with you and your kids." He stood to leave. "I know this doesn't make it better, but maybe understanding helps. Will you stay in touch?" I asked. "Be part of our lives?" His eyes filled with tears. "I'd like that very much." After he left, I sat with those bank statements for hours, tracing the pattern of theft, the lies, the years of manipulation. Patricia and Gerald Patterson weren't just bad parents. They were career criminals who'd spent decades stealing from anyone they could, including family. And I'd never seen it. Emma came downstairs, rubbing her eyes. "Mommy, are you okay?" "I'm okay, baby. Are you sure?" I pulled her onto my lap. "I'm sure. We're all going to be okay. Even though Grandma and Grandpa were bad, even though. Especially because we're away from them now. Uncle Stuart seems nice." "He is nice. Can he be our grandpa instead?" I smiled. "I think he'd like that." 6 months later, we were settling into something like normal life. Emma was doing better in school. Lucas was talking more. Ryan got a promotion. I got my job back with an apology and a raise. The FBI called periodically with updates. They'd located 12 of the 14 missing children, returned them to their families. 2 were still missing, but they were hopeful. Marcus Denton got 25 years. His operation was completely dismantled. My parents were in federal prison. I'd received one letter from Patricia, which I threw away without reading. I didn't need her explanations or excuses. Didn't need her version of events. Some people are toxic. Some people hurt you no matter how much you love them. Some people see their own children as opportunities to exploit. And the only way to survive that is to cut them out completely. No contact, no forgiveness, no looking back. One night, Emma asked me, "Mom, why did Grandma and Grandpa try to take us?" "Because they wanted money more than they loved anyone," I said honestly. She was old enough for truth. "That's sad." "It is sad. But it's not our fault, and it's not our problem anymore." "Do you miss them?" I thought about it. Really thought about it. I miss the people I thought they were. But those people never existed. So no, I don't miss them. "Me neither," Emma said. Lucas, listening from the couch, added, "They were mean." "They were," I agreed. "But they're gone now, and we're safe." Diane came over for dinner that weekend. She'd been instrumental in researching my parents' finances, finding the connections that led to Denton. The FBI had thanked her personally. To surviving, she said, raising her glass. To more than surviving, I corrected. To thriving. And we were. Slowly. Painfully. But we were healing. All of us. Uncle Stuart became a regular presence. A real grandparent. Taking Emma to the park. Reading to Lucas. Being the family my parents never were. Some days were hard. Emma had nightmares. Lucas got anxious when strangers approached. I jumped at unexpected phone calls. Ryan woke up panicking sometimes, reaching for the kids to make sure they were still there. But we were together. We were safe. And we were free. The FBI closed their investigation a year after the arrests. Agent Harrison came by personally to deliver the news. We found the last 2 children, she said. They're home now, safe. Thank God. Your parents' testimony helped. They gave up names, locations, everything, trying to reduce their sentences. Did it work? No. The judge denied their appeal. 17 years stands. Good. She handed me a card. If you ever need anything, if they try to contact you, if you hear anything, call me. Thank you. For everything. You did this. You fought for your children. You didn't give up. That's what made the difference. After she left, I stood in my kitchen, looking at my family. Emma doing homework at the table. Lucas building with blocks. Ryan making dinner, humming along to the radio. This was what I'd been fighting for. Not some perfect life. Just this. The ordinary, beautiful, messy reality of being together. Being safe. Being home. My parents had tried to take everything. Had planned it meticulously. Had covered every angle. But they'd miscalculated one thing. They'd underestimated how hard I'd fight for my children. How far I'd go to protect them. How much I was willing to sacrifice. And that miscalculation had cost them everything. 18 months after the arrests, I woke up to sunshine streaming through the bedroom window, and the sound of Emma singing in the shower. Lucas was already downstairs. I could hear him chattering to Ryan about dinosaurs. Normal morning sounds. Normal life. I lay there for a moment, breathing it in, the peace, the safety, the knowledge that my children were here, in this house, because I'd fought for them and won. Eventually, I got up, made coffee, joined my family in the kitchen. Ryan was making pancakes. Lucas was showing me a drawing of a T-Rex. Emma was explaining the plot of the book she was reading. Ordinary chaos. This was what victory looked like. Not dramatic, not flashy, just breakfast on a Saturday morning with everyone I loved. The doorway darkened. Uncle Stuart appeared, holding a box of donuts. "Morning, family," he said. "Brought supplies." "Uncle Stuart!" Lucas launched himself at him. Stuart had become the grandfather my parents never were. Patient, kind, genuinely interested in the kids' lives. He came for dinner twice a week, took Emma to her soccer games, taught Lucas to fish. He was the family we'd chosen, and he was so much better than the one we'd been born into. After breakfast, while the kids played in the backyard, Stuart and I sat on the porch with coffee. "How are you really doing?" he asked. "Better. Most days. Some days are still hard. The nightmares? Less frequent. Therapy's helping. Good." He was quiet for a moment. "You know, I've been thinking about Patricia and Gerald, trying to understand how they became what they became. Did you figure it out?" "No. That's the thing. I don't think there's an answer. Some people are just wired wrong. They see the world as something to take from, not something to be part of." "Do you think they ever loved anyone?" "Honestly, I don't think they know how. Love requires putting someone else first. Patricia and Gerald only ever put themselves first. I used to think if I was good enough, perfect enough, they'd love me properly. That's what children do. Blame themselves for their parents' failures. But their failures were never your fault." I knew that intellectually. Therapy had taught me that. But hearing it from Stuart, from someone who'd known them even longer than I had, it hit different. "Thank you," I said. "For what?" "For being the family I needed. For stepping in when everyone else abandoned me." "You're my family," he said simply. "That's what family does." A few weeks later, Brandon Walsh called. "Good news," he said. "The insurance company has agreed that the life insurance policy was fraudulent. They're pursuing criminal charges against Patricia for forgery, and they've offered you a settlement." "A settlement?" "For the distress caused by their failure to detect the fraud earlier. $50,000. It wasn't about the money. But it was nice to know someone was holding the insurance company accountable for not catching my mother's forgery." "I'll take it," I said. "And put it in the kids' college funds." "Smart move." We also got a call from the state. The money my parents had stolen from my grandmother's estate, the $400,000 that should have been mine, some of it had been recovered. $220,000 from seized assets. It would be released to me once the criminal case was completely settled. What should we do with it? Ryan asked. First, pay off our mortgage. Second, fully fund the kids' college accounts. Third, take a vacation. Somewhere far away and beautiful, where we can all breathe. Where? I don't know. Hawaii? Europe? Somewhere Emma and Lucas will remember forever. We ended up choosing Disney World. Not exotic, but perfect for a 6- and 4-year-old. We spent a week there, riding rides, meeting characters, eating too much ice cream, watching our children be joyful and carefree, and completely unaware of how close we'd come to losing everything. On the last night, we watched fireworks over the castle. Emma on Ryan's shoulders, Lucas in my arms. Both kids oohing and ahing at the lights. This is the best day ever, Emma declared. And looking at her face, lit up with wonder, I believed her. She'd forgotten the bad days. Or at least, they were fading into background noise. The therapy was working. The nightmares were stopping. She was just a kid again, excited about fireworks and princesses and whatever adventure tomorrow would bring. That was healing. That was victory. Back home, life continued its steady forward momentum. I got promoted to senior marketing coordinator. Ryan started his own consulting business on the side. We moved out of survival mode and into actually living. The court notified us when my parents' appeals were denied, when they were transferred to their permanent facilities, when they tried to send letters that we refused to accept. Do you ever wonder what they'd say? Ryan asked once. No, I said honestly. Whatever they'd say would be lies or manipulation or blame. I don't need to hear it. Not even closure? I have closure. They're in prison. My kids are safe. That's all the closure I need. Diane threw me a celebration dinner on the 2-year anniversary of the arrests. She invited everyone who'd helped. Detective Morales, Agent Harrison, Brandon Walsh, Stuart, Julie, and her family. To Ashley, Diane raised her glass. Who fought like hell and won. To the people who helped me fight, I corrected. I couldn't have done this alone. Detective Morales spoke up. You know, I've been doing this job 20 years. I've seen a lot of custody battles, a lot of bad people, but I've never seen anyone fight as hard as you did for your kids. That's what made the difference. The system almost failed them, I said. It did fail them, he agreed. For a while, but you didn't give up. You found the evidence we needed. You put yourself at risk to save them. That's courage. Agent Harrison added, because of you, we stopped a major trafficking operation, saved 14 children, prevented who knows how many future victims. You didn't just save your family. You saved a lot of families. I hadn't thought about it that way. I'd been so focused on Emma and Lucas that I hadn't considered the bigger picture. But she was right. If I'd given up, if I'd let my parents win, Marcus Denton's operation would still be running. More children would have been stolen. Sometimes fighting for yourself means fighting for everyone. Emma was 9 now. Lucas was 7. They barely remembered the scary parts anymore. Emma was in soccer and drama club. Lucas was obsessed with space and wanted to be an astronaut. They were normal, happy kids. Sometimes Emma would ask questions. Mom, why did Grandma want to hurt us? She was sick in her heart, I'd say. Some people are broken in ways that make them hurt others. It wasn't your fault. It wasn't about you at all. Do you miss having parents? I miss having good parents. But I never had those. What I had was people who pretended to be parents but were really just predators. That's sad. It is. But I have you. And you have me. And we have Dad and Uncle Stuart and Aunt Julie. And everyone who actually loves us. That's what matters. I'm glad you're my mom, Emma said. I'm glad you're my daughter. Those moments made everything worth it. Every sleepless night, every terrifying moment, every time I thought we'd lose, it all led to this. My children, safe and loved and thriving. 3 years after the arrests, I got a letter from the prison. Patricia had requested to see me. Wanted to apologize. Wanted closure. I threw the letter away without responding. 6 months later, another letter. Gerald this time. Claiming he'd found religion. Wanting forgiveness. Wanting a relationship with his grandchildren. I threw that one away too. They'd lost the right to any part of our lives. No amount of prison time or claimed redemption would change that. Some bridges, once burned, stay burned. Stuart had a heart attack when Emma was 10. He survived, but it scared us all. Reminded us how precious time was. How important it was to appreciate the people who actually showed up for us. "You're going to be okay," I told him in the hospital. "I know. Got too much to live for. Got to see these kids grow up. They love you. I love them. Love all of you. You're the family I should have had all along." He recovered. Cut back on work. Spent even more time with the kids. We joked that he was making up for the grandparent years he'd missed. When Emma was 12, she came to me with questions about the custody battle. She'd overheard something at school, come home confused. I sat her down, told her the truth, age-appropriate but honest, about Patricia and Gerald's attempt to take her and Lucas, about the criminal operation, about why she'd never have contact with those grandparents. "They sound like villains in a movie," she said. They were. But real ones. "Were you scared?" "Terrified. Every single day. But I was more determined than I was scared." "Would you have given up?" "Never. Not for anything." "Good," she said. "Because I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad you fought." "Me too, baby. Me too." Now, 5 years after the arrests, I look at my life and barely recognize it from the nightmare we lived through. Emma is 13, preparing for high school. Lucas is 11, still obsessed with space but also getting into coding. Ryan's business is thriving. My career is strong. We're not rich, but we're comfortable. We're happy. Uncle Stuart is healthy and active, the grandfather my kids deserve. Julie's kids are close with Emma and Lucas. Diane is still my best friend, still the person I call when I need to process something hard. We have family dinners every week, game nights, movie marathons, all the normal stuff families do when they're not fighting for their survival. Sometimes I think about Patricia and Gerald in prison. Wonder if they have regrets, if they understand what they destroyed, if they think about Emma and Lucas and realize what they lost. Probably not. People like that don't see other people as real. They see them as resources, as means to an end. But I don't spend much time thinking about them anymore. They're the past, a dark chapter that's closed. My present is full of light, of laughter, of kids arguing over the remote control, and Ryan making bad jokes and Stuart teaching Lucas chess and Emma practicing monologues in the living room. Of ordinary, beautiful, chaotic life. I learned something through all of this. Something important that I want to share. Family isn't just about blood. It's about who shows up, who fights for you, who protects you when you're vulnerable, who stays when things get hard. Patricia and Gerald were blood, but they were never family. Stuart, Julie, Diane, even Detective Morales and Agent Harrison, they became family because they showed up, because they cared. And I learned that strength isn't about never being afraid. It's about being absolutely terrified and fighting anyway. It's about facing impossible odds and refusing to quit. It's about protecting what matters most, no matter the cost. I learned that instincts matter. That night when Ryan found the bag, when every instinct screamed that something was wrong, I should have trusted that sooner. Should have seen the signs earlier. But I also learned forgiveness. Not for my parents. They don't deserve that. But for myself. For not seeing it sooner. For missing the red flags. For being so desperate for normal family that I ignored the warnings. I learned that healing takes time. That trauma doesn't just disappear. That some days are still hard, even years later. But that hard days don't mean you're not healing. They just mean you're human. And I learned that kids are resilient. Emma and Lucas survived something terrible. But they're okay. More than okay. They're thriving. Because we gave them safety and love and therapy and time. If you're fighting for your children right now, if you're facing impossible odds, if you feel like giving up, here's what I want you to know. Keep fighting, even when it feels hopeless, even when the system seems stacked against you, even when everyone tells you to give up. Keep fighting. Document everything. Trust your instincts. Find people who believe you and lean on them. Don't face it alone. And know that you're stronger than you think. That love is more powerful than greed. That truth eventually wins, even when lies seem to be winning. You are your children's best advocate. You are their safe place. You are what stands between them and the people who would harm them. So stand. Fight. Don't give up. Because on the other side of that fight is peace. Safety. The ordinary joy of breakfast on a Saturday morning with everyone you love. And that's worth fighting for. That's worth everything. My name is Ashley. 5 years ago, my parents tried to kidnap my children, sell their identities to criminals, and kill me for insurance money. Today, I'm watching my daughter practice for her school play while my son explains rocket trajectories to anyone who will listen. Today, I'm drinking coffee with my husband and planning our next family vacation. Today, I'm surrounded by people who actually love me. Today, we're not just surviving, we're living. And if I can come back from that nightmare, so can you. Hold on. Keep fighting. Your kids need you. And you're stronger than you know. What would you do if you discovered your own parents were plotting against your family? How far would you fight to protect your children? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your story might help someone else who's facing their own impossible situation. If this story moved you, please hit that like button. Subscribe to hear more stories of survival, courage, and hope. And share this with anyone who needs to know that even in the darkest moments, there's a way forward. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. I hope you never face what I faced. But if you do, I hope you remember that you're not alone. That there are people who will fight with you. That justice is possible. Take care of yourselves. Protect what matters. And never, ever give up on the people you love.